I'm calling it. This will be my favorite book of the year. Check back in 8 months and see if I'm right. This is Lesser Ruins by Mark Haber, published by Coffee House Press, which is a Minneapolis-based publisher and also happens to be one of my all-time favorite small presses. This was shortlisted for this year's Republic of Consciousness Prize for the US and Canada, and yes, you better believe it, this is the long-awaited favorite of mine from the shortlist, which is saying a lot because there were amazing books on this year's shortlist. And I will leave a link to my Why is someone's phone dinging? I will leave a link to my playlist below, so you can check out all my videos about all the books on the shortlist. I did a video for every single book on the shortlist. I also did a bunch of other videos. So I'll leave the playlist for that below. What is going on with the phone? Whose phone is that? It's not my phone because I'm filming. Okay, moving on. This is narrated by a man who is a writer and an academic. He teaches philosophy at a nearby community college, and he is desperate to complete his life's masterpiece. Something he has been trying to write and complete for, I'm pretty sure it's decades at this point when the novel opens. He's been trying to write this for decades. What is that masterpiece, you ask? I'm so glad you're interested. The masterpiece he is trying to write is a book-length essay about the life and work and legacy of French Renaissance writer Michel de Montaigne. This is our narrator's one life goal, to complete this book-length essay, and he doesn't ever let you forget it. But our narrator is held back for decades. What is he held back by, you ask? By life's constant, can I help you? Okay, I'm filming right now. He is held back by life's constant distractions from completing his book-length essay. I think I said I'm filming. So yes, he is held back from completing his book-length essay by the constant distractions of modern. Why? Whose phone is that? Can you turn the ringer off? What was I saying? Yes, okay. So his phone keeps dinging, his son keeps calling, his adult son keeps calling, his phone keeps dinging. He has to go teach at his community college with students that he basically describes as a bunch of morons, is how he kind of sees them. And then his wife gets dementia, and then she dies. And all of these many things take up his precious time that he desperately wants to use to write his book-length essay about the life and work and legacy of Michel de Montaigne. And then after his wife dies, he is completely overwhelmed by grief. He's overwhelmed by the people who keep trying to reach out to him, and his phone keeps dinging because all these people are trying to reach him, and he's just overwhelmed with everything. The style and tone of this book are right up my alley. It has long sentences, many repeated and looping phrases. It is ridiculously funny. But also horribly, touchingly sad. And it has a narrator who is both highly intelligent and completely obnoxious and completely oblivious to so many things surrounding him. That combination of elements is just perfect. It just comes together so beautifully. The themes include ambition and art making and philosophy and literature and the creative process, and above all, this is a book about grief. This is also a book about procrastination and how the narrator uses all of these distractions in his life to keep him from pursuing the one thing that he claims he so desperately wants to achieve. And he uses those distractions perhaps to keep certain anxieties at bay in terms of his grief, in terms of his ability to perhaps write this so-called masterpiece, in terms of his connection with his son, all sorts of things that he's not addressing because he's being so distracted by the fact that he is constantly distracted. I have so much more to tell you about this book, truly. There is so much in here to share about the themes and the craft choices and the ideas presented. And I have so much that I do want to share. I think it's going to be maybe one of the most important videos I have ever made on this channel, and maybe will ever make on this channel. That's how much is in this book. That's how important this book was for me. And I think if you give it a chance, for you too. So I have so much more that I have to share in this video. But first, we have to make coffee. The narrator in Lesser Ruins is a man with obsessions. And one of his obsessions, or we might say addictions, is to coffee. I deeply identified with this narrator's love of coffee, so much so that I can't keep telling you about this book without making a cup for myself. My husband is behind the scenes to walk me through it because he's actually the true coffee connoisseur of the household, and while we do that, I'll read you some quotes from Lesser Ruins that will undoubtedly give you a sense of the flavor of the book. But none of this matters before I have coffee, I think. Single origin, because I'm not a savage. And when making coffee, one must consider every element, from the source of the beans to the roast of the beans to the water, because even serious connoisseurs tend to forget about the water, disregard water entirely, even though water is just as important as the beans, maybe more so. And why would a person who claims to love coffee, who spends prodigious amounts of time choosing a particular roast, brewing method, and grinder, squander it in the last minute by using bad water, tap or unfiltered water, hence water that ruins and defeats the coffee-making ceremony? And after pouring a steaming cup, I enter the study, sit before the roll-top desk, and regard the scraps of notes, the endless typed pages and copious lists of abandoned titles that make up my unfinished work. Had Montaigne been plagued by self-doubt? Did Montaigne have a wife who died in the long, slow tedium of common misery? Questions I refuse to face without coffee, I decide, something Kenyan, single origin and shade-grown, a roast possessing floral notes with hints of cocoa and melon. Just yesterday I'd written close to 10 unbroken pages about coffee, its various geographic histories, brewing methods, and roasting techniques, which included the obligatory digression on Balzac, several thousand words regarding his death by coffee, caffeine overdose, some claim, while getting nowhere closer to my ideas on Montaigne as well as a rational life of solitude. In fact, those 10 pages were a testament to irrationality, to bluster and gibberish, to the notion of writing words simply because one could. Of course coffee mattered. Of course coffee should be a minor subject touched upon in my essay about Montaigne. Coffee is an idea creator rather than an idea destroyer. Coffee gives one mental lucidity and the confidence crucial for any intellectual campaign, and not only coffee, but the ritual of coffee. The ritual as important as the coffee itself. Choosing the beans, grinding the beans, boiling the water, steeping the beverage, all the steps that seem trite and insignificant but are charged with meaning, steps that provide a soul with a sense of solace and routine. But 10 pages on coffee? I decide to make coffee in order to not write about coffee and not think about coffee, assuming I'd written so much about coffee only yesterday from a desire to have coffee. Kenyan, I think again, wet processed. I think further, light-bodied but full-flavored, lithe and velvety, radiant and reassuring. Only a cup though, I think, not an entire French press like the day previous. A fatal mistake I now realize, hence I'd written not a single word, but instead 10 pages of unbroken text, which went nowhere. Swiftly she disappeared, and though Kleist's sculptures interested me, coffee interested me more. Hence I stood back up, negotiated around a massive creature boasting scales and talons, advanced toward the can of coffee to make a quick audit, simultaneously heartened and repulsed, because lifting the lid I saw the can was untouched, completely full. But it reeked of swill and sorrow, prompting memories of all the terrible cups of coffee I'd suffered in my life. The coffee I'd settled for when nothing else would do, and fucking Christ, I thought, of course I would drink it. I had no choice, but the grounds are darker than the darkest shit, blacker than a starless night. Coffee grounds frozen and defrosted in transit, I imagined, lingering endlessly somewhere on a store shelf, grounds lacking nuance and grace as well as the diligence and zeal true coffee demands. Then, seeing his chance, Marcel spoke about his new opportunity, the remix he'd been asked by a friend to make, which led to a discourse on the long storied history of queer culture celebrated in underground music, which, I thought with relief, was something he'd talk about at length, allowing me to drift and nod and feign interest while thinking about things like my wife dying in the next room, or my love of coffee from Ethiopia and Indonesia. And did I have a preference? Because both, I reasoned, were easily the best coffee-growing regions on Earth. But did I prefer one over the other, I wondered? A question I'd posed to myself for years. Because coffee from Ethiopia was the most fragrant, in my opinion. The smallest beans, too. Smaller than anywhere else in the world, I thought, and if one placed a coffee bean from Ethiopia beside a coffee bean from anywhere else, say Colombia or Vietnam or Papua New Guinea, it would make the size of an Ethiopian coffee bean, meaning its diminutiveness, meaning its dainty suppleness, abundantly clear, and motherfucker, I thought to myself, I completely ignored the Rwandan coffee bean, and the wonderful coffee grown in Rwanda utterly fucking disregarded my unequivocal adoration for the Rwandan coffee bean, which also ranked among my favorite coffee growing regions on Earth. All of this I considered while Marcel described the remix he'd been asked by a friend to make.
It's good. Looks like good coffee. Now give me the coffee face.
What's the coffee?
I don't know. Just wanted to see you make a funny face.
Ugh. That is so good. How long did that take? I think we've run out of time.